can listen to this song later on, but I just wanted to say thank you to these young ladies. So how do you say thank you to all? Once again, how was it? How were these two girls? So we started strong when we were going through the slides, and they came up with all the scripts on their own. Honoring the past, inspiring the future, this is what it means. So this is their version of Adwa, and one more time, give them. Yeah. ويش ما يقرب على اللبات I tell you halfway. I guess, sorry, Giddy, the screen we gathered here today, and at this beautiful venue, we're commemorating the 130th anniversary of the Victory of Adwa. As you all know, when the world celebrates Independence Day, we celebrate elders, families here, students and dreamers, all of us united on this historic afternoon. And March 1st, 2026, it's exactly 130 years ago. On a mountain in northern Ethiopia, something happened that the world said could never happen. Today, we're going to take a journey to that moment. We're not just here to remember, we are here to understand. As you all know, our theme this year is honoring the past and inspiring the future. And to guide us on this journey, we are joined by one of the world's leading experts on this history. I'm honored to be here right now present for all of us, Professor of History of the University of Washington, Seattle, and the author of the acclaimed book, The Battle of Adwa, African Victory in the Age of Empire. His work shows us that Adwa was not just a military triumph, it was a monumental event that challenged the era's racist assumption, inspired the African diaspora, and secured Ethiopian sovereignty as the only uncolonized nation. Please put your hands together and welcome to the virtual stage, Professor Raymond Jonas.
Thank you for that greeting. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here, to be part of your celebration of the Adwa victory, the anniversary. I wish so much I could be in Boston in person to celebrate with you, but this is not a bad way to be there just the same. I'm glad to be part of the event and to share a little time to talk about the historic victory of Ethiopia at the Battle of Adwa.
Thank you, Professor. So, Room, welcome. Perspective, sometimes we have learned. So it's an honor to have you. Just like you said, maybe one day we'll have him in person. But today, we are happy enough to have him through virtual event. So anything that you want to add about yourself before I start? How did this journey came for you to write this book, or how to get involved?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you know, I came to this book as an American. I think it's important to say that. What inspired me was a photograph done in 1896, probably shortly after the battle. A Boston photographer, in fact, by the name of Fred Hollanday, hired an African-American model into his studio, dressed him up as he thought an Ethiopian king would look, did a series of photographs that he called Menelik. And what that told me is that here was someone miles away, just an Ethiopian battle, but it was really a global event. And that just, you know, it changed, and I spent time then in archives of the Battle of Adwa that it was really a history as a global event. So that was the inspiration. I came to it who was connecting through this photograph with the historic event itself.
Thank you, Professor. That's a very good thing. The past and inspiring the future. So we have kids who want to learn more about how it started. Sunday afternoon, 130 years removed from that historic date. It's easy to forget how different the world looked back then. The big picture. Can you explain to this room what the Scramble for Africa 19th century, and most importantly, for me and then for audience would be, what did the very idea of decisively defeating a European power seem to be not just unlikely, but almost unimaginable?
The fate of Africa in the 19th century was dire. This Africa, the European powers are very nervous about the fact that they are rather modest in scale relative to and make a claim to being great powers themselves. The notion is that if you want to be a great territory they seek to conquer is Africa. It represents a new phenomenon where there's this accelerating pace for European powers, Britain and France, of course, of Africa that they can claim for themselves. And what this means for Africa is that it seems as though the future of Africa
It's definitely amazing. Like you said, it was like almost a piece of cake. I always say they sat together and said, France is going to put their flag here, Germany is going to be here, and divide up Africa.
Right. Well, it's not without conflict, too, because with the conquest of Africa, there are points of conflict, points of struggle. And for Ethiopia, it's not just the European powers interested in expanding and creating its own empire. So in regional terms, the fact that the high altitude makes the terrain difficult for and it is as European empire moves forward, Ethiopia becomes one of the few territories yet to be conquered and brought into a foreign empire.
That's true, very true. And then, like you said, with the preparation, it's like I think the Europeans mistook technology or the empowerment, like the firepower for spirit. They completely missed the power of people united for a common cause. So,
that's right. I think that's a really good point. And in a way, this is something that this is partly the story of Adwa is partly the story of an internal struggle in Ethiopia. There are rivalries, notably between Jonas in Tigray and Menelik in Shoa, and this rivalry creates a rather precarious situation. Menelik is willing to talk to Europeans, and he's willing to talk to the Italians in particular. One of the things he's able to extract from the Italians is firearms, because one of the points of weakness for all African nations is that typically they lack the political organization, the scale of organization that would be required to defeat a European army. And secondly, they lack the weapons. The European technology exceeds that of the typically available in Africa. What Menelik is able to do is to acquire European weapons in a partnership with the Italians. Remember, the Treaty of Wuchale provides for a working relationship between the two countries. So what Menelik has to do is to try to figure out how to get what he wants from the Italians and to use that for his own political ambitions within Ethiopia, notably in his struggle against Jonas for control of Ethiopia. So it's an interesting story. It's in a story that has external agents, external Menelik is doing is actually quite risky. He ultimately prevails, but it needs to be said that it's an interesting struggle.
Yeah, definitely. We'll come back to Menelik a little bit, but you mentioned the Treaty of Wuchale, that piece of paper. What you write in your book, you say it's a translation trick that changed almost everything. For the people in this room today, can you break it down for us? How did few words in Italian verses Amharic become the spark that lit the fuse of this war?
Right, so the Treaty of Wuchale is signed in 1889, and that's after an initial conflict between Italy and Ethiopia. At a place called Dogali, forces commanded by Ras Alula, who's acting on behalf of Emperor Jonas, attack an Italian battalion. Some 500 soldiers die. So there's that conflict there. But in the aftermath of that, Menelik negotiates with the Italians in a separate agreement called the Treaty of Wuchale. And in effect, what he does is to recognize an Italian presence in what's now Eritrea in exchange for weapons as well as recognition of his own status. He also sends a delegation to Italy, led by Ras Makonnen, and Makonnen goes to Italy, meets with the Italian king. Again here, it's a very delicate dance that's going on here. There is a clause in the treaty that establishes a protectorate status over Ethiopia, and there's some debate among historians about how much this was understood. One story has it that this Article 17, was not, there was a translation error, and it wasn't fully understood that a protectorate relationship existed. In my book, I argue that's a little bit more complicated than that. I argue that at the time of the agreement, Ethiopia, Menelik in particular, was not in a position to contest Article 17. What he does is to wait until he's in a position of strength before he challenges what he regards as an unacceptable protectorate status. So my argument is that here too, he's being very careful to choose the time and place where he confronts the Italians on this issue. It's not that he's unaware of it, but he needs to be very careful about when he acts.
Definitely.
And of course, he would eventually do so. This would lead to the conflict at Adwa. But that's, some time passes, right? The Treaty of Wuchale is signed in 1889. The war doesn't break out for 7 years. There's a good long period of time in between.
So I think, it said, the Italian version said Ethiopia was obligated to conduct all foreign affairs through Italy. But in Amharic version, it's only said it could use Italy good offices if we wanted to, which was completely two different meanings. And I think that's when Menelik just pretty much said this is a deception and has to be corrected, and he got ready for the war. In your book, you talk about King Menelik. You see him not only talk about him like who led, you paint a portrait of him as more than just a king. You describe him as a master strategist, a unifier. For the young people in our audience today who are learning this history sometimes maybe for the first time, who was really King Menelik? I know you did mention a little bit of him right now. How did he manage to unite Ethiopia, as like you said earlier, historically divided through the nobles, but he was able to build a coalition strong enough to face an European army?
Yes, and he does this because he understands in a way that other political leaders have understood that there's nothing like a foreign invasion in order to bring people together and recognize that they have more in common than they have differences. And that turns out to be very important. When the Italians move into they move into Eritrea and then start to bring settlers in, and then there are incursions in 1891 and later where they start to push down into Tigray, this begins to set up the conflict that would result in the Battle of Adwa, and it makes it clear that, for example, Tigray itself is at risk. But they eventually push down as far as Lake Ashenge, and when this happens in 1895, this is when Menelik calls for a war against the invasion, and he's able to get the response that he needs. In other words, he's able to get people, and it needs to be emphasized, the people who rally are people who were rivals of Menelik. They are rivals of Menelik, but it's the common threat that brings them to the conclusion that whatever misgivings they have about Menelik, whatever disagreements they have about Menelik, there's now a common enemy, and that they have to fight that common enemy if they want to prevail. And it's interesting also to point out that the Italians are keenly aware of internal differences among Ethiopians, and they expect to be able to exploit those differences. They think that Menelik's army, which is huge by the standards of the day, the army that Menelik is able to put together is on a scale that's really unprecedented. But the Italians think that this is going to break down, that this coalition of Ethiopian leaders is going to come apart because the differences are simply too great, and they will, Tekla Haimanot will peel off. Other leaders will peel off because they, in the end, they don't support Menelik. The Italians, of course, are astonished to find that the scale of the Ethiopian forces completely overwhelms the Italian forces led by a man named Toselli. So first at a place called Ambalaje, and then of course at Mekele, there's another conflict, two smaller conflicts leading up to the Battle of Adwa itself. But the success comes from the Menelik's being able to exploit this incursion of Italian forces that then brings a rallying of Ethiopian leaders to his side.
Really clear to say that if we fight together, if we fight separately, we're going to fall. But if we fight together, we will stand. And they came and they followed, and he inspired so many of them. At the end of the day, they understood unity is not just nice to have, it's essential for the survival. So we honor King Menelik today, we honor that vision of unity, so to get together here. And it brings us, you described them in different ways, the march itself to Adwa, that by itself for me struck me from your book and then from other things, is that victory didn't start on the battlefield. You started even months earlier with the march. So can you describe, I know you already mentioned it, like the sheer scale of what Menelik accomplished, almost I think between 80,000 to 100,000 soldiers.
Right.
It's not just soldiers, family support, marching hundreds of miles over mountains and rough terrains during that time. What did that look like, and what does it tell us about Ethiopian organization and discipline at that time?
It's a really good question. The Adwa campaign is extraordinary for its scale and for its length. It begins in Addis Ababa, but of course culminates at Adwa. That's 580 miles. One of the things that's unappreciated often about warfare is what we call logistics. That is, how do you support an army and feed it? How do you organize shelter? How do you find water for animals? How do you find provisions? All of these are really important. You can't have a successful battle if you can't get your army to the battlefield. It's 5 months. That's a long time. Now the army grows as it moves north to Adwa. So it's 80 to 120,000 at the Battle of Adwa. Along the way, this army is growing, and of course, it's the responsibility of leadership to make sure that soldiers are fed, and animals are fed. And of course, and as you point out, there are often family members who are part of this movement. Complicated thing, and I think it's really important to recognize, even before the battle begins, just the effort that's required to get this army to the place where the conflict is going to take place. To arm them too, because these are soldiers who are who, in terms of technology, military technology, are not at a disadvantage with respect to the Italians. So it's an army that is well equipped, and it's an army of an extraordinary scale, and that combination turns out to be decisive when it comes to the Battle of the 1st of March.
Yeah, I love that. Like for me, through that mountains, across the rivers, and all kind of weather. And like for me, that perspective, even learning about Napoleon armies didn't move that fast, or Sherman didn't cover that distance.
That's right. If we think of other great campaigns, they're great because of the distance covered. Sherman's march to the sea in the American Civil War crosses 300 miles. That's a long way to carry an army. Or Napoleon's invasion of Russia, 490 miles. But this campaign is 580 miles. It's really extraordinary if you put it in comparison with some of these other campaigns.
Yeah, definitely also how the communities came together. They lived off the land, they lived the neighbors, everyone came together to feed this army and the nation, because they understood it was not just about war, it was about defending a nation. I just can't imagine that shared sacrifice. It's not like today we have social media sharing everything here, come on, but through that process they were able to do that. And I think this brings us back again, like you said, you at the beginning you mentioned about the Italian miscalculation on the other side. So the Italians had the modern rifles, artillery training, all the advantage of European military machine that they have. Yet they walked into what I call maybe a disaster. So for the history lovers in the room today, what were the critical mistakes, or how did the Italian miscalculate so badly? And I'm going to jump out from the screen and come right here in front of you. Here I am. Whenever we get together, we're going to have to move and celebrate. But like I said earlier, every time I come, move and shake so that we are more activated, the blood flow, so that we have more. So we have so many amazing programs that we have today lined up. But at the same time, I just want to make sure to understand some fun facts that could defeat colonialism. Black people everywhere could rise up. White supremacists did not want to think any black people can stand up. TG, are you ready? So we have like different dances that TG is going to come in and do. She might not be able to cover all. And let's see who we have ready. Do you have the music? Do you have the music? Okay. I think they know. Okay, at least they know. Okay. So if they are ready, I think it's going to be my good friend, where she's far away, coming in from New Hampshire. Rahel, if you can come to, if you guys can applaud Rahel. Rahel is an amazing, so.
የአድዋው ድል አምባ ይጠራል ከሩቁ የጀግኖቹ ትውልድ ይዘምራል ዛሬም እንደ ጥንቱ ደመራዋን ከቦ የኢትዮጵያ ጀግኖች ድምፅ አድምጡት ይጮሃል ሳቲም ሰናፌ ያምራ የጥቁር ዘር ብቃይ እምዬ ምኒልክ ነፃነት ምርጫ ጥሩልኝ ባካቸው ጥሩን በጥር በጎራዴ እነራስ ወጥተውኛውን ላንሳ ያምነሸንሸኛል ያኩነሰንሰኛል የአድዋ ጀግኖች ስማቸው ሲነሳ ነገሩን ባካቸው መጣንበት ሲሉት የጣሊያን ዝግንትል ኮዴ ደረሰ ጨርቁን ጥሎ ሲሮጥ ያንን ብናኝ ጢሙን እየነሰነሰ ቶዚሊ በሩጫ ሱሪው ሲወልቅበት አልቤርቶ ብርክክ የጣይቱን እልፍኝ ዳዴ ሲሄድበት ጋሼ ባላቶርም ከበርጩማ ወርዶ ሳዱን ባያነቀው ሲሰግድ አወርድዶ ያ ጀግና ጃዊሳ ሲያሳጣው መድረሻ እያለ ሲገዘት ሁለተኛ ቅብጠት ሁለተኛ በሻ ጀግንነቷ እነት ብጡን መላመሳያት በምናቤ እሳትና ውሃ እየተመታቱብኝ ይሰረቃል ቀልቤ በደግነቷ ላይ ጀግንነት ደርባ ወንዶቹ መሃል በአንዲት በርሜል ውሃ ከንቱ አደረገችው የጠላትን ዋሻ ዳመን አላት በማንም በምንም የማትለውጠው ከየቱም ሚዛን ላይ የማታስቀምጠው ይሄ ተሰባሰቡ ከአንድነት ደመራ እህቱ የአባቶች አጥንት ብትንትን ብሎ ጠንቷል ቁርጥማቱ ገብርዬና ሁሉ መዋደድ ዓለም ያስደመመ ነፃነቴን ብሎ አብሮ እንዳልቆመ ጠላት በግናል ነካው የእጁን ፍጥሬ ተካፍሎ እንዳልበላ እንዲጨፋጨፍ በቃይሎች ድንጋይ በውስጣም ነጥሎ እንዳይመታ ውሻ በቀደደው ጅቦች እንዳይገቡ የበግ ለባሽ እንዳይሆን ጥጋ እንደገና Thank you. አለኝ
ኳቹ ትንሽ ደቂቃ አግኝታችሁ ብታወሯት
አለኝ
ኳቹ ትንሽ ደቂቃ አግኝታችሁ ብታወሯት ስታወራም ግጥም ነው የሚመስለው ስለዚህ ራሄል እንደገና ከኒው ሃምፕሻየር ድረስ ነው መታ የተቀላቀለ to join us she has a book so if you want to get her book let her know and one more time please applause and say thank you
ሰማን እሺ ምንድናት እስቲ መጀመሪያ ልቦን ሃናንሳ አድማጭ ልብ ግዛ ግና ንገረኝ ካልክማ ግና ምንድናት ካልክማ እነሆ ተቀበል ድንቅ ቅኔዎች ምላሽ ለክሪስፒ ቅዠት ለፋሽስቱ ቁንጮ ለሞሶሎኒ ይብደት የዝንት ዓለም ዝክር አድዋ ጦማር ናት ያ ነጭ ወሮ በላ የገዛ ዜጎቹን እንደ ከብት የበላ ክሪስፒ አልኩንዴ ፍራንሲስኮ ክሪስፒ ከቅዠቱ ጋራ ከሞተ ቆይቷል ሞሶሎኒም የለም ከስልጣን ተዋርዶ ስሙ ተደምስሷል ከአድዋ ድል ማቶት በአድዋ ድል እውነት ምኒልክ ኃያል ሰው ምኒልክ ጥቁር ሰው እንሆ በአድዋ እንሆ በኢትዮጵያ ስሙ ያስተጋባል ለሰው ልጅ ነፃነት መብትና እኩልነት እንደ ጣይ ያበራል። ሚኒሊክ ይኖራል። ሰማህ ይሰማል ወይ? የኛ አንተ የታሪክ ሰንኮፍ አንተ ስንኩል ከትውልድ በጨለማ ባካኝ ሀገር የምትንድ ነፍስ እንደተሰዋ ሀገር ለምንላት ለምዬ እማማ አድዋን አይቱ ጣይቷ ከፀሐይ በላይ ደምቃ በጦር ስልት ጥበብ እጅጉን ተራቃ ማይ ያስጠምታ ምንጭ ያቀፈን ጠላት የወቃችበት ነው በፈጠረው አረር በፈጠረው እርሳስ። አድዋን ከጠየቅ አለች አምባላጌ። አድዋ ሲዘከር ያ የጦር መሐንዲስ አሉላ አባ ነጋ ገበየው አድዋ ሲታሰብ እሱን ማን ሊረሳው እሱን ማን ሊነሳው? ዝንት ዓለም አርገው ነው አበው በደማቸው አጥንተው ያኖሩት ረቂቅ ሀቲቷ አድዋ የድሎች ሁሉ ንግስቷ አድዋ የድሎች ሁሉ ንግስቷ።
እሱም የጻፋቸው መጽሐፎች አሉ። እዚሁ የኛው እንቁ ነው የቦስተን እንቁ ልጅ ነውና ማታውቁት ቦስተን መኖሩን ማታውቁት ዋው አርጋ መስዋም
ሰላም ዲናክሽው
ይቻላል። ስክሪን ወደ ላይ አድርገውና ግን አሁን እንትን አይመጣም።
ከልደቴ ሁሉ አሳምነው የተቀቡት ዘይት ልክ እንደ ዳዊት ነው በገሪው። አገርሽ ሲመጡብሽ በተንኮል ጠንቅቀሽ ያወቅሽው ባገርሽ ተርጓሚ ቦርቡረሽ ያየሽው ዘራፍ እኔ ሴቷ እንዴት ቢደፍሩን ነው እንዴትስ ቢንቁን የዳዊት ራፊ የንጉሥ ሰለሞን ጥበብ ፍልቃቂ መሆኔን አያውቅም የዛ የጥቁር አድማቂ። ናፈቀኛ ትውልድ የዛ ዘመን ሰው ገዳይ ቢሉት ወንድሙን አይገድል ስንቱ ሞቶልሃል አንተ እንዳትጎድል። ልብሶ ዘርፋፋ ነው መሬቱን ይልሳል ፈልጉት ልባሱን የተጫማውንም። ይህ የሊቅ አገር ሰው የትም አይገኝ ቢገስፍም ዛሬም ባንዳ አለ ስም አድዋ ላንተም ለኔም ነው የነፃነት ክብር ለመጪው ፍቅር የሰጡ ፈለ በእልፍ አላፍ እኛ ባናውቀውም ጊዜያችን ቢከፍችን ነበረ የአድዋ ክብር። ሲወድሽ አየሁት ባልቻ አባ ነፍሱ ወጥቶ ተጋደለ ሳይሳሳ ለነፍሱ። ስንት ጀግና አለሽ ላንቺ የሚጋጋ ታታሪው ጀግና ልዑል አባ ነጋ። አድዋ ዛሬ ናት አድዋ ትላንት ቀና ያደረገን የነፍስ መድኃኒት። ፊት አውራሪ ጌጃ ገርቦ በተንቤ ግንባር በቦምብ የሞተልህ ሀገር ሊገብር የሀዲያው ጀግና በልባችን ያሉ ተጠርተው የማያልቁ ብዙ ልጆች አሏት። በሳት ላይ ተጥዳ ዜማ ያሪ መሪ ጋሻ ኧረ እንዴት ይረሳል ራስ መንገሻ። እልፍ ቢከበር ያንስበታል እንጂ አይበቃውም ክብር። አንዳንዴ ጥሩ ነው በሰው አገር ገብቶ አገር ሊገነባ ባገሬ ቋንቋውን አጥፍቶ ተንቀጥቅጦ በመሰሉኒ ጥቁር ሆኖ በነጭን ያሸነፈ የለም በዘመኑ ብለው እንዳልኮሩ ለህዝቡ ጥያቄ መልስ ለመመለስ በጣም
ኪዲም እንግዲህ ታንኪ በሉልን። ወላይ የደረሰው ማን ነው ብትሉ የሉሲ አባት ነው። ቅድም ያያችኋት ሉሲ ማለት ነው። እሷን ያተረፈልን ወንድማችን ነው።
እንዲያጅበኝ እፈልጋለሁ። ሰንደቅ ዓላማችን ነው የሚለው። ሰንደቅ ዓላማችን እንደምታውቁት አረንጓዴ ቢጫ እኔን እዚህ የአድዋን የተመለከተ ግጥም እንዳቀርብ ስለፈቀዱልኝ በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልኝ። ገድልሽ ትየለሌ ባህር ስላንቺ ማልመው ይስጥልኝ። ገድልሽ ትየለሌ ባህር ስላንቺም ማልመው በልቤ ያለውን እናገር ዘንድ ሁሉን ምን አለ ለአንድ አፍታ ጥበበኛ ብዬ እናገር ዘንድ ሁሉን ምን አለ ለአንድ አፍታ ጥበበኛ ብዬ ቆሜ ይገዳደረኛል የገዛ ወንድሜ እኔን ያረገኝ ይገዳደረኛል የገዛ ወንድሜ እኔን ያረገኝን መቼ ይነግራታል ስሚ እንግዲህ አድዋ እስካኝና ማስተዋል ሲጀምር በፍጥነት ሲጓዙ ኩነቶች አይኔ ስር በአንዱ ደስ ሲለኝ በሌላው ሲከፋኝነት ለልብ ስብራት ለሐሰት ህላዌ ትርጉመ ቢስነት አድዋ
Of empires built on greed and lies that crumbled before Ethiopian eyes. Adwa's victory is our own. Let me hear you. The story of Adwa. How are you enjoying the show so far? The program, is it going well? So we have more to come. And then now we're going to be going in. There is so much we need to know about Professor Kiros. We learned so much from him, Ethiopia family. So we have a lot to learn from him, especially when it comes to the right. This one will be a short one. And then right after this, we're going to have TG come back again. And then Professor Winston Langley will be joining us on. Professor Kiros and Professor Winston, if I can have you on stage, it will be an honor. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It is always intimidating to introduce a scholar whom I have befriended as a colleague and a friend for the past 45 years. Professor Winston Langley does not require any formal introduction, other than letting the audience know, among numerous things that he has accomplished, which is a compilation of 15 highly rated books in the academic arena, 2 books of which he is internationally known for. The Abolition of War is one, and
11 ideas published by our very own, the premier publisher of books, Kahoot Chakole, of the African Red Press. More about Professor Langley, but among other things, he has also served as a provost. I'm honored to be sitting right next to him to learn from his impeccable wisdom, his tireless, courageous work on human rights globally. Welcome to this Adwa session, with which I look forward to celebrate.
I was going to say that I perhaps have very little to say after listening to Lucy and Betty about the meaning of exaggerates my merits, and he has to suggest that you may want to have an engagement in philosophy. He is an Adwan.
Very deeply, a disruption of a continuous European history.
If you would permit me to say that I was born of Rastafarians, introduced me to Adwa. Adwa was not only the setting of some boundary, that the psychology, all of human history, and it assigned to Africa, disrupted. And in that rupture of Japan over Russia, really took part. I don't know if you remember that battle. The Japanese, very much as Menelik II did, destroyed Russians and disenabled them from continuing the war. As Adwa is mentioned. We're talking about diplomatic history. And that history seeks to focus on what we may call treaties, negotiations. I noticed the historian whom we listened to very carefully referred to the negotiations of 1889, and I might say something about it. Yes. It also has to do with military sciences, and of course, wars. Or if they had housing, or whether they had health care, etc., was implementing what we call strategy in diplomatic history. The Italians wanted him to have big in that. But he understood that Italy, the US had taken over Hawaii under the guise of protectorate. What Adwa means. It was not only that psychological and historical rupture.
Question, considering the fact that I've been allotted, I think, about 20 minutes, so I want. In terms of thinking about the past and sedimenting our.
First and foremost, all of the children and young people here. It means stories and narratives on the concept of the silence of the good. Has never taken off in the dramatic spheres of convention. We must think of Adwa as operating. Thirdly, there is something in Percy B. Shelley in his, and if you recall, in Prometheus, he was condemned by the gods for having revealed to human beings the capacity to hope. And in that poem, of hope. And he speaks of it in wreck, the thing it contemplates. Contemplated. And the fourth would be a cultural feature, and you know all about it in Kemet philosophy, a Kemetic foundation of a state called Ethiopia. In the ethics, in the history, 5,000 and more years ago, that is Adwa.
To Betty and Lucy, what would you like to say to these young women, or the strategic advices that you'd like to render to them?
Area of women's rights, and I speak in that vein. Adwa was not simply an expression of the work of men. You remember the work of the Empress. And if we want to think in terms of the many more studies in this area, what I would say to these two young women, that as part of their history, in this country, for example, in 1848, at the Seneca Falls Conference, women, it's a conference called to discuss their right to vote. They gathered at Seneca Falls and they could not chair the meeting. Nobody prevented them from chairing it, but they did not feel that they could chair in public their own meeting. And do you know who chaired it? A slave who slave. In other words, the public space, not women. So what? Be intimately acquainted with the 1979 International Convention against Women, and make that textual expression for our collective future.
I hope I did not interrupt.
You did good. They did amazing. Again, for Professor Quiros and Professor Langley, we really appreciate you. Getting weaker, what's going on here?
I need to hear it louder. Adwa. So, TG, Aklok, are we ready?
It's time for the Kahoot competition for the children. So please pay Kahoot. Again, for the every parent with a child, please give your children your phone and scan the QR code that's gonna pop on the screen right now. You ready? Children who are doing the Kahoot competition, you can come to the front so we can participate. No, that's good.
I'm going to display the website that they need to access. Here you go. You can tell the answer at the end.
So parents, go into Kahoot to partake in the competition. And they're gonna, and here's the code. So please sign in. This is a competition specifically for children. There's a limitation on how many people can partake. So please give your children your phones and we can start. Okay, we're about to start. Not yet, not yet. We're ready. Are you ready? Wait, a few people on the side. We're starting. Host for today's host stands for Massachusetts Support Agency, Massachusetts Ethiopian Safety Association, Massachusetts Ethiopian Support Alliance.
You can see it on the...
Say the colors out loud because they can't see it.
Oh, okay. The next question is, when was MESA established? Red, 2014, blue, 2018, yellow, 2010, green, 2021. MESA established.
What is the name of the Mesa cultural dance group? This is the group that often performs during our Green Shagoye. What is the name of the Mesa cultural dance?
The father of Ethio jazz, whose music gained international attention after being featured in Broken Flowers film in 2005. A. Halumega.
Blue, Getacho Mokrea, Mulatu Astak. Question number 5. Who led Ethiopia in the Battle of Adwa? Red, Tewodros. Who led Ethiopia of Adwa?
On which exact date did the Battle of Adwa take place? Red, March 1st, 1896. Blue, March 1st, 1689. yellow March 1st, 1986, green March 1st, 1868. On which exact date did the Battle of Adwa take place?
Where in Ethiopia is Adwa located? Red, Wallo, blue, Tigray, yellow, Gondar, green, Jimma. Where in Ethiopia is Adwa located?
The first athlete to win back-to-back Olympic marathons. Green,
Kananisa Bakala, yellow, Paul Tergat, Bakila.
What was the treaty? Blue, the Treaty of Wuchale, and green, the Pretoria Agreement. What was the name of the treaty that led to the conflict between Italy and Ethiopia?
What article in the Wuchale Treaty was the cause of the conflict? A deliberate discrepancy in translation. Red, Article 17. Article 16. Green, Article 12. Which article in the Wuchale Treaty was the cause of the a deliberate discrepancy in translation? Red.
Our strategy and encourage resistance against Italian colonial demands.
Red, Zaudi 2. Blue, Tayu 2. Yellow, Mintawab. Green, Queen of Sheba. Which empress was instrumental in the strategy and encouraged resistance against Italian colonial demands?
The Italian force during the Battle of Adwa, Red Emperor Battieri, who led the Italian
won the Rotterdam Marathon 4 times and set world record there in 1988 that stood for over a decade. Red, Ibrahim Hussein. Blue, Haile Gebrselassie. Rotterdam Marathon 4 times. The answer is Balaina Densamu.
Which border historical movement was the Battle of Adwa connected to? Red, the Industrial Revolution. Blue, the Scramble for Africa. Yellow, the Cold War. Green, the Resistance. Which border the Renaissance. Which border historical movement was the Battle of Adwa connected to?
Why was the Battle of Adwa significant beyond Ethiopia? Red, movements across Africa and the Black diaspora. Green, it united all African kingdoms. Why was the Battle of Adwa significant beyond Ethiopia? The answer is that it inspired anti-colonial movement.
And then I gave her the prize.
Your prize. Third place, we have Mahadot. Second place, we have Noah. And first place, we have Emmanuel.
አርቱ ምናምን ነው መጨረሻ Kids, did you have fun? That's it? Did you have fun? So it's good to have the kids be included when we do this kind of celebration because we're doing all of this for the kids. So this is how we pass the torch. Thank you again for everyone to participate. This kind of celebration is good. Next, we're gonna have, we're gonna give awards to the in Adwa. Projector. So we're going to ask for everyone to bring it down again. Let me hear it. Victory. Victory. Okay. Now we're going to jump into the next interview I'm going to be doing with Ato Neguse. ይሄኛውን በአማርኛ ነው የምናረገው። 9 መጽሐፍን የጻፉ ሪሰርቸር የምንላቸው ትላንትና ወሰን ምናላቸው ዋኪንግ ላይብረሪ ብሏቸዋል እና በዚህ ደቂቃ ውስጥ በዚህ በትንሽ ደቂቃ ውስጥ ጨርሰን አውርተን ከሳቸው ጋር መጨረስ እንድታሳልፉ እንጠይቃችኋለን። አቶ ንጉሴ ወደ መድረኩ ቤት አቶ ንጉሴ ከመለንንበል አንዳንድ ቃላቶች በአንድ ቃል ወይም ደግሞ በሀፍተ ነገር ሊነገሩ የሚችሉ አድዋና አውሮፓ ብል ምን ይላሉ እርሶ?
ይሰማል? በጣም በቅድሚያ ፊታችሁ ቆሜ እንዳካፍል በዓሉን እንዳከብር ስላደረጋችሁ አዘጋጆችንም ሁላችሁንም አመሰግናለሁ። ጅቶች ሙሉ ትምህርቶች ናቸው ብዬ አስባለሁ። አድዋን በሚመለከት ቨርቹዋሊ ላይ ከቀረበው ቃለ መጠይቅ ጀምሮ ባህላዊ ዝዋዜው የልጆች ወጣቶች ውይይት በጣም በሪኮርድ ሊያዙ የሚገባቸው መልእክቶች ናቸው። እኔ ተምሬያለሁ። ከዚህ በላይ የሚጨምረው ነገር ያለ አይመስለኝም። ግን አሁን ፈተና ላይ ተጣደሰው ነኝ። የሚመጣልኝ ጥያቄ ለመመለስ እንድችል ጸልዩልኝ።
ንፍታታም ብዬ ነው ሰው አድዋና አውሮፓ ስል ባንድ ቃል ወይ ባንድ
የአድዋ ዘመን አፍሪካንና አውሮፓን ግንኙነት እንዴት ታያዋለህ በሚል የግማሽ ሚሊኒየም ሰሚ ያጣ የአፍሪካ ጩኸት ብዬ ነው በአንድ አረፍተ ነገር ማስቀመጥ የምችለው።
ድል ምን ብለው ይገልጹታል?
የአድዋ ድል በብዙ ጸሐፊዎች በተለያየ መልክ ተገልጿል። ለምሳሌ ይሄም ቢሆኑ ለውጭ ባበረከተው ነው። ግን በእኛ ስናየው እኔ አሁን እኔ ደው ሞክር ካልከኝ የአፍሪካ
መልስ አግኝተናል። እሱም ድል ነው። እሺ ለርሶ ይሄ ነገር እንዴት
የነገር ሁሉ መጀመሪያ
የነገር ሁሉ መጀመሪያ እንግዲህ ወደ መሃል ከመግባታችን በፊት ሁለት ሰዎች በግድ መጠቀስ አለባቸው የማስበው እንግዲህ ስንልስ ምን ይላሉ?
በአንድ አረፍተ ነገር ነው በአንድ ቃል
አረፍተ ነገር ወይ በአንድ ቃል በሚያመቹት
ሊክም መግለጽ ያስቸግራል። በአንድ ቃል ግለጽ ካልከኝ እንዴት ይገለጣሉ? አልተሸፈኑም።
ዶክተር ሳምሶን ቀደም ምን ብሏል አይደለ? ሜቢ ኢየሱስ ሲመጣ ይሆናል በደንብ አድዋ ከበረው እንደዋለው አድዋ አልተሸፈነም፣ አጼ ሚኒሊክም አልተሸፈኑም። ገና ያልነካ ነው ብዙ መንገድ አለ። እሺ እቴጌ ጣይቱንስ ምን ይሏቸዋል?
በአንድ ቃል እንደ ቃል እኔ ሰው ያዙልኝ ባካችሁ። እቴጌ ጣይቱን በአንድ ቃል የሌለው ገላጭ ቃል ለሳቸው መሆን የሚችለው እቴጌ ጣይቱን በምን ትገልጻቸዋለህ? በስማቸው። ስማቸው ጣይቱ ነው። ጣይቱ ማለት ፀሐይ ማለት ነው። ፀሐይ ይገልጻቸዋል ብዬ አስባለሁ።
እንግዲህ ፀሐይ እቴጌ እናመሰግናለን። እስኪ ይቀመጡልንና ሞር እንወያያለን። እዛች ጋር ቢቀመጡ እንግዲህ ከፀሐይ ጀምረናል፣ በደንብ እንወያያለን። ለመግቢያ ቢሆን እንዲቻል እንግዲህ ወደ 9 መጽሐፍን ጽፈዋል። የሚያተኩሩት ናቸው። ስለነዚህ መጽሐፎች ላይ ባጭሩ ምን እናገኛለን ብለው ለህዝቡ
እንደምስቱ የወጣው መሰለኝ። የኔ መጽሐፍ ትንሽ ነው። ትልቁ አርዕስት ያው አድዋ ነው። አድዋ በጣም ትልቅ ነው እና የጻፍኳቸው 9 መጽሐፍት ከዛው 7ቱ ልብ ወለድና ሪሰርችን ወይም ጥናታዊ፣ 2ቱ ግን ታሪክ ላይ ያተኮሩ ናቸው። የመጀመሪያው ያው ከሁለቱ አንዱ ታላቁ ጥቁር የሚለውን አካተተ ግንኙነት ላይ የተመሰረተ ነው። አትላንቲክ ሰፊ ነው። ከአትላንቲክ ውቅያኖስ በስቲያና በመሃል ያሉ ሀገሮች፣ ደሴቶች፣ ካሪቢያን፣ አሁን ቅድም ያነሳናቸው ጃማይካ ወንድሞቻችን፣ የደቡብ አሜሪካን ሁሉ ያካተተ ስር አለ። እሱን በሚመለከት ኢትዮጵያ ምን ያህል መልክ እንደነበራት በብዙ ፍለጋ የተሰበሰቡ መረጃዎችን ይዞ የቀረበ መጽሐፍ ነው። በቅርብ ነው ለህትመት የበቃው እና ከዛ በፊት የነበሩት የልብ ወለድ ናቸው። እድሜ እየገፋ ሲሄድ ከልብ ወለድ ይልቅ በጣም ጉጉ ስለሆንኩኝ ወደ ታሪክ አዘንብያለሁኝ በፍላጎት እና ይሄንን ነው ማለት የምችለው ባጭሩ።
እሺ እንግዲህ እንዳሉት ወደ አድዋ እንግባና በዛን ሰዓት ላይ እንደ አድዋ አይነት ውጊያን በለው ፍሚያን በለው በአፍሪካ ውስጥ ሌላ ነበረ ወይስ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ብቻ ነበር እንደዚህ አይነት ትግል የነበረው?
ነበረ። አድዋ እኮ የምናከብረው ብዙ ሙከራ ተሞክሮ ብዙ የህዝብ ንቅናቄ ትግል ተካሂዶ ደም ፈሶ እንባ ፈሶ ከትውልድ ትውልድ ሀዘን እየተላለፈ በአፍሪካ ላይ ቆይቶ መልስ ባጣና ለአፍሪካውያን ለጥቁሮች ሽንፈት ተፈጥሯዊ አቅማቸው ነው እሚል እምነት እያሰረጸ በመጣበት ዘመን ላይ የተከሰተ ድል በመሆኑ ነው እና በአገር ውስጥ ያሉ በአፍሪካ ውስጥ ያሉ ጥቁሮችና ልዩ ኢምፓየሮች በኋላ በመጨረሻዎቹ ዓመታት ላይ 3 ግዛቶች ብቻ ነበር የቀሩት በኬንያ በሌሎች ሀገሮች በመራ በመሐከላዊ ተካሂዷል አልሆነም 3 የመጨረሻ ፍልሚያዎች አንደኛ ሳሞሪ ቱሬ በሚባል ጎበዝ አፍሪካዊ በመራብ አፍሪካ ዋሱሉ የሚባል ትልቅ ኢምፓየር ነበር ከፈረንሳይ ቅኝ ገዢ ወታደሮች ጋር የተካሄደ ትልቅ ፍልሚያ ነበር እሱ አንዱ ታሪክ ነው የሚጠቀስ ነው ሁለተኛው አሳንቲ ኢምፓየር የሚባል በጋና ወይም በድሮ በጠራው ጎልድ ኮስት አካባቢ የተካሄደ ፍልሚያ ነው ሶስተኛው በዳግማዊ ምኒልክ ይመራ የነበረው ኮሎኒያሊስት ትግል ነው እነኚህ 3 ጎን ለጎን የተካሄዱት ወደ አፍሪካ መመለስ የሚፈልጉ በአሜሪካ የነበሩ በካሪቢያን የነበሩ ጥቁሮች ሁሉ እነኚህ 3 አካባቢ ብቻ ነበሩ እና ለምሳሌ የሳሞሪ ቱሬን እንውሰድ ሳሞሪችን ነገዶችን ያካተተ የጥንቲቱን የአፍሪካ መንግስት መመለስ አለብን በሚል ዋሱሉ የሚባል ኢምፓየር ተቋቋመ ነው በጣም አስደናቂ ምሳሌ የሚሆን ነው ነጮቹ ደነገጡ አፍሪካውያን በጎሳ ሲከፋፈሉ ነው የሚፈልጉት ትራይባል እንዲሆኑ ይፈልጉት የሆነ እሱን አይነት ወታደራዊ ስልቶች አልፎ አልፎ በቪየትናም ጦርነት ጊዜ ቪየትናሞች ሲጠቀሙ ነበር ይገርመኛል በጣም ቋንቋ አላዳበሩም ይሄን የቋንቋ ሚና ዋላ ነሰዋለሁ የወል የተለያየ ብሔረሰብ ተናጋሪዎች በውጊያ ውስጥ በፍጥነት መግባባት መቻል አለባቸው ጽሁፍ ያለው ቋንቋ ሲሆን ደግሞ ይሄንንም እናያለን እና እየታገለ ረጅም አመት ለ16 አመት መከታ አልቻሉትም ጥሩ አልቻለም መጨረሻ ላይ በቂ ዝግጅት ስላላደረገ ከመጀመሪያው ገና እንደተቋቋመ ስለመጡበት ይስተመው ወታደራዊ ሁለተኛ በአንድነት ያምናል ህዝቡን በቃ አንዳርጊ ነው በቃ የተለያዩ ሰዎችን አንድ የሚያደርግ ነው ይሄ የሊደርሺፕ ትልቅ ኳሊቲ ነው ወደፊት የሚያስፈልግ ለየትኛው በዚህ መንፈስ ይታወቃል እስከዛሬ ድረስ ያበረከተው ይተከስለታል ሶስተኛው ስልጣኑን ከሀገሩ በታች አድርጎ ያያል ግን በእኛ ስር ትሆን የዋሱሉ ኢምፓየር በእኛ ስር ይሁን በብዙ ጊዜ ለምነውታል ልጅ ሁሉ በአንድ በኩል ወደ ፈረንሳይ ሀገርን ተቀምጠው ለመምራት ሞከሩበት ሁኔታ ነው አልሆነም ሁለተኛው እንዱላ ባጭሩ ላንሳል ያጋሩት አይ ስልጣኔ ካልተነሳ በሚል ጦር ህዝቡ እንዳይዋጋ አደረገ መጣያ እኔ ስልጣን ላይ እስከሆንኩ ድረስ ነው ሀገሬን የምወደው እንዲህ አይነት መሪዎች አጋጥሟችሁ ይሄንን ከሱ እንማራለን ሶስተኛው
የአድዋ ድል የምንለው ስለ ጦርነቱም ብዙ ተወርቶ በዛን ሰዓት ከነበረው ከአውሮፓኖች ጋር ለመወዳደርም ልበለው ስለዚህ የአድዋና ቀደም መግቢያ ላይ እንደጠየቅኩት አድዋና አውሮፓን
እሺ ስለ አድዋ እንደው ጦርነት ከመጀመሩ ጥቂት ቀደም ብሎ ባራት ጀነራል ባራቲሪ የጣሊያ ጦር መሪ ጣሊያን እና ህዝቡ ጀግናው ድል አድራጊው ያለ ተቀበለው በጩኸት እሱም ለህዝቡ ንግግር ሲያደርግ በቅርቡ ምኒልክን በቀፎ አስር ያመጣላቸዋለሁ ብሎ አስጨብጭቧል ኢጣሊያኖቹ በዚህ ደረጃ ነበር የተማመኑት በዚህ ሰዓት ምኒልክ ህዝቡን እንዲዘጋጅ ውስጥ ለውስጥ በሚተላለፉ መመሪያዎች በተለያየ ቦታ ላይ ህዝቡ በስንቅ በትጥቅ እንዲዘጋጅ ይደረጋል በጸሎት እንደምንም ተጌጣይቱ ደግሞ ለስንቅ የሚሆኑ በቂ አጋሰሶች ጫኝ ፈረሶች ምኖች እንዲዘጋጁ ያደርጋሉ ሸክላ ሰሪዎች ተሰብስበው በብዛት ይሰራሉ በእያንዳንዱ ጦር ጀርባ ምግብ አቅራቢው እንዲዘጋጅ ለማድረግ ይህን ሁሉ በፍጥነት እያሰሩ ነበር ቅድም እንዱ አንድ ነገር ተጨምሮ ጭንቅላቴ ተጭሮ ነበር አድዋን ስታከብሩ የዘመቱት ሰዎች ብቻ አይደሉም ይሄንን መዘከር አለብን የኢትዮጵያ እንስሳት ዘምተዋል የቆላው የደጋው የናደገው እንስሳት ዘምተዋል እነሱ ብቻ አይደሉም አብረው የዘመቱ እነ ቆሎ እነ ሽምብራ በሶ ቋንጣ ትርጉማል እነኚህ ሊቆዩ ሊበላሹ የማይችሉ ስንቆች ናቸው ዛሬ በዘመናዊነት እንሰራቸዋለን የጣላጠውን እንደዛ አይነት አሉት የራሱ የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ በባህል ባዳበራቸው እነኚህ ልዩ ልዩ ነገሮች እንደ ወደፊት በበዓል ላይ መቅረብ ቢችሉና ቢታዩ ደስ ይለኛል እነ ዲኮሽ የማይበላሹ አዋጆች ለረጅም ተራራ ላይ ቁጭ ብሎ ቀን ሌሊት አድፍጦ ለሚያድር ወታደር ከያዛት ጭብጦ በቀር ምንም የለው ይሄንን ከባህል ሰብስቦ ይዞ የዘመተ ነውና ይሄን ዝግጅት ያደርጉ ነበር እነ ጣይቱ እነኚህ መጀመሪያዎቹ ነገሮች ናቸው ከዚህ በኋላ ጊዜው እየደረሰ ሲመጣ የጣሊያን ሹማምንት በሙሉ ወደ ኢትዮጵያ መኳንንቶች በስውር መልእክተኛ ይልኩ ነበር እና በዚህ መሰረት በፌብሩዋሪ ወር ላይ ይመስለኛል 96 እርግጠኛ አይደለም ጊዜ ጀነራል ባራተሪ ወደ ውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር በጣሊያን ባደረገው ቴሌግራም ላይ ራሶች ሁሉ ተለያይተዋል መኳንንቱ ተከፋፍለዋል ሁሉም የሚያስበው ስለራሱ ብቻ ነው የጎጃሙ ንጉስ ለምኒልክ የውስጥ ጠላት ነው የትግራይ መንገሻ ራስ መንገሻ ከኛ ጋር እየተነጋገረ ነው የወሎ ንጉስ የወሎ ራስ እንደዚሁ ቀን የሚጠብቅ ሆኗል ራስ መኮንንም ተንኮል እየጠነሰሰ ነው የሚል ሪፖርት ነው ያደረገው ለባራተሪ እውነት ነው የመሰለው እውነት የመሰለው ምንድነው በሚስጥር ሲላክለት እሱን የመሰሉ መረጃ ለመሰብሰብ ከሱ ይሞክሩ ስለነበር ይሄንን እያንዳንዱን ለምኒልክ እየነገሯቸው ምኒልክ ያውቁታል በመጨረሻዎቹ ሰዓታት ላይ እንዳውም አሉላ አባ ነጋ አዛጋ ምስላቸው የምናያቸው ጀግና ምኒልክ ጋር ተገናኝተው ምኒልክ እንደኛ ጣሊያኖች ተዋውረዋል በል እኔንም እኮ አባበሉኝ አላት በጥቅም ማለት ነው ተሳስቀው ተለያዩ ኢትዮጵያውያን እንደዛ ብልህ ነበሩ አንድ ነበሩ ድርና ማግ ነበሩ ይሄ ባዛዦችና በመሪው መሃል ያለ ብስለትም ጥንካሬም አንድነትም የሚገለጥበት ነው ከዛ በኋላ ጦርነት በሴፕቴምበር ይመስለኛል 5 በፈጀ ጉዞ አድዋ አካባቢ ተደረሰ በመንገድ ላይ የአምባላጌው ጦርነት የመቀሌው ጦርነት ውጊያ ተካሂዷል የመጨረሻው የአንድ ቀን ጦርነት በአድዋ ተካሄደ ለዓለም አዲስ ዜና በሰረ ተስፋ ቆርጦ የነበረው የውጭው ዓለም እንግዳ ዜና ሰማ ይህ ዓለም አቀፍ ተጽዕኖ ፈጥሯል ተጽዕኖቹ ተዘርዝረው ያልቁ ብዙ ተጽዕኖ ነው በሱ ምክንያት ፓን አፍሪካኒዝም ተመሰረተ ወዲያው አፍሪካውያን ተወላጆችና የውጭ ዲያስፖራ በሙሉ ካትት አንድ ማህበር አንድ ኃይል ወደፊት መፍጠር አለብን በሚል በ1900 ለተካሄደ ትልቅ ጉባኤ መነሻ ሆነ እዛ ላይ የምኒልክም ተወካይ ተገኝቷል 20 ቀን ባልሞላ ጊዜ ውስጥ የማታ ቤሊ የሚባል ለህዝብ እንዳለ በጸረ ኮሎኒያሊስት ትግል ጀመረ ብዙ ነጮችን ጨረሱ መጽሐፍ ውስጥ ጥቁር ከነጭ ያነሰ ነው የሚለው ሳይንሳዊ ነበር በዓለም ላይ ከሚታወቁ ለምሳሌ ፈላስፎች እንደ ጆን ሎክ እና እንዳውም ከነሱ ውስጥ የስኮትላንዱ ዴቪድ ሂውም በፍጹም ስልጣኔ ወይም አርት ሳይንስ ከጥቁር ህዝብ ይፈልቃል ብሎ መቀበል አይቻልም። ቆሞ ማሸነፍ ወታደራዊ ብቃት የመሪነትን
ማየትን ስለሚሊክ ዋናው ሩል አላማቸውም ልበል አሰራራቸው ምን ይመስል ነበር?
እንደሚባል ነገር አለ አሁን በዛሬው ዘመን በሚዲያ የምሰማለው የህዝብ የተሳተፈበትን ትግል እና እዛውስ ምንጥቀስ ካልን የህዝብ አንድነት ከመሪ የራሱ ከዛ ላይ በጦርነቱ ስንቅና ትጥቅ ኢትዮጵያውያን ባህላዊ ስንቅ አላቸው ሊቆይ የሚችል በጦር ሜዳ መታጠቢያው ጠበል ያለበት በበሩ ጋር ቆሜ ያለሁኝ ብዙ ህፃናት ወጣቶች አሉ እዛ አካባቢ እንድንጠቀምበት ሶስት ክፍሎች ዲቪዥኖች አሉት አቋቁሙ ንግድ ፈቃድ ሰጣሃለ ስምምነት ክፍሎች ዲቪዥኖች አሉት አቋቁሙ ንግድ ፈቃድ ሰጣሃለ ስምምነት ዛሬ ፀሐይ ሞቅ ተነፈጉ
ጊዜ ቢኖረን ደስ ይለን ነበር ቀኑን ለማውራት ግን
ከዛ ሌላ የአፍሪካ የስልጣኔ አሻራ ተደርጎ የሚቆጠረው በእኩል ነው ይላሉ በባህሪው ቋንቋው ሁሉ በተፈጥሮ እኩል ነው በአገልግሎት ግን ይለያያል የአፍሪካ የወል ቋንቋ ሆኖ የጋምቤላው ከትግሬው የጉራጌውን ከኦሮሞ ሶማሌውን ከአፋር ጠቅሟቸዋል እስከ ዛሬ ድረስ እና በአፍሪካ ውስጥ የወል ቋንቋ የሚባሉ 10 ምናምን ቢሆኑ ናቸው ጠቅላላ እኔ በዚህ በኩል ይዣለሁ ብሎ አምባለጌ ላይ ለመዋጋት በተጋፈጡበት ወቅት ፈጥመዋል እዛ ውስጥ መግባባት ስላለበት ነው ውጊያ ላይ ይሄ ሁሉ አስተዋጽኦ አለው እና ከአውሮፓውያን ኩል ማህበር ላይ መሰለፍ የቻለች ብቸኛ አፍሪካ ሆነች በሊግ ኦፍ ኔሽን ላይ እንደገና የተባበሩት መንግስታት መስራች አባል ሆነች በተወሰኑ ናቸው በዓለም ላይ የአፍሪካውያን አባል መሆን የቻሉ እና ኢትዮጵያ መስራች አባል የተባበሩት መንግስታት የመሆን እድሉ ሁሉ አይኖርም ነበር ነፃነቷን ይዛ በመቆየቷ ነው ከዛ ሌላ ለአፍሪካ ሀገሮች ባንዲራ ሁሉ ምልክት ሆኖ የአንድነት ምልክት ኢትዮጵያ የሚለው ስም ራሱ የመለወጥ እድል ነበረው ኢጣሊያ አዲሱን ባንዲራ እንዴት እንደሚያስተዋውቁ ተዘጋጅተዋል ያን ሁሉ አስቀርቶልናል ከዛ ባሻገር ዛሬ የአፍሪካ ህብረት መቀመጫ የሆነውና ቀድሞ የአፍሪካ አንድነት ድርጅት ነበር ይሄ ሁሉ የአድዋ ፍሬ ነው ባጭሩ
አይታወቅ የሚችሉ አድዋና ቦስተንን የሚያገናኘውን አድርገን እንዘጋለን
ጥሩ አድዋን ቦስተን የመጀመሪያው የምኒልክ የአንበሳ ወደ አሜሪካ የገባውና በታላቅ አቀባበል በዚህ በናንተ ወደብ ነው እና የምኒልክ አንበሳ ቦስተን ላይ ያገሳ እስቲ ታላቁ ጥቁር የሚለው መጽሐፍ ውስጥ ተመልከቱ አንድ ትልቅ ትርኢት በመላው ስቴትስ የዞሩበት ትርኢት ነበር የታወቀ እዚህ በዶብ ቲያትር ሲቀርብ መሬት ሁሉ ሰው የሞላበት ነበር እዛ ላይ የመክፈቻው ዜማ አውት ሚኒሊክ የሚል ነው ሚኒሊክ መወድስ የሚል ነው ትልቅ ዜማ ነው በትልቅ ዛሬ ላነሳላችሁ የፈልገው ምንድነው የሚኒሊክ ስም ከአድዋ በኋላ አብሮ ሄደ አድዋም የሚለው ስም አብሮ በአለም ላይ ይሄ ጥያቄ አለ እንደገና ደግሞ ከነጮችም ጣሊያናዊ ስም በዩናይትድ ስቴትስ ውስጥ መቼ ገባ በሚል ሪኮርድ የህዝብ ቆጠራ ነው ያየሁት የዩናይትድ ስቴትስ ሴንሰስ ህዝብ ቆጠራ ከአድዋ በኋላ የተካሄደው በተረፈ 76 ሚሊዮን ህልበትም ማየት አልችልም። ሳምፕል ሳይ 1 4 5 ዜናው ማታውን መውጣት አልቻለም። ግንኙነት የለም። ጦርነት ታምሶ መጡ ሴት ነጭ ኢጣሊያዊት ጦርነት ታምሶ መጡ ሴት ነጭ ኢጣሊያዊት ዜናውን ትሰማለች። በልቧ ያሰበችው ማንም ያወቀ የለም። ዜናውን ትሰማለች። በልቧ ያሰበችው ማንም ያወቀ የለም። ጡትም ሪዝናቸው ሲጠየቁ ለኢሚግሬሽን ላሳይለማቸው ሪዝናቸው ሲጠየቁ ለኢሚግሬሽን ላሳይለማቸው እነዚህ ሰዎች አይከፍሉም እንዴት ክራይቴሪያው ስተናቸዋል። ከዛው ከፈረንሳይ ስትጭኗቸው ይሄን የማያሟሉትን አታውለ ከዛ በኋላ ልጆች ይዘው ከሚመጡ በቀር ላለማስገባት ኢሚግሬሽኑ ማላውም ሜኔሊክ ፌራራ ይባላል። በኋላ መጀመሪያ ወላጆቹ ዜግነት አፕላይ ያደርጋሉ። የነሱ ሪኮርድ አለ። ቆይቶ አፕላይ ያደረገው ከተማ የነሱ ሪኮርድ አለ። ቆይቶ አፕላይ ያደረገው ከተማ ኔፕልስ እያለ ይዘረዝራል። ፎርሙ ተቃውሞ ያለው ኔፕልስ እያለ ይዘረዝራል። ፎርሙ ተቃውሞ ያለው ታማኝነቴንም አቁም ያለው ለኢጣሊያ መንግስት እና የነኛ ቤት
Art, could you guys come to the stage real quick, please? Event ላዘጋጀው organization በመግዛት ከልጆቻችሁ ጋር come on up. All right. አንድ ጊዜ አጨብጭቡላቸው እነኚህ ሁሉም አርት we voted, you guys voted, so we collected everyone's votes, and then the judges still had a what is number one art, and what we focused on was which art followed that in mind. We have a first, no? Okay. Arsema Amara. Thank you for participating. Do I have, can I please have El Shaham? El Shaham is not here. She's not here. Okay. All right. Okay, so I gave certificates to everyone who participated. Not sure why I don't, did you guys have art displayed over there? No, I know okay, so we'll follow up with you guys. Maybe you don't have it because you're a winner. Haha. All right, you all ready for the winner? Should we do the third place for you? So we are giving out Amazon gift cards, and for the winner, we're gonna give the Adwa puzzle, but they're gonna show you what it is. Let me hear it. Okay, all right, second place. Bisalat Fiso. I forgot to give them the gift cards. Okay, first place. Okay, who's excited? Can you guys show me who got second place? Second place? Congratulations. Good job. Look at that. Yeah. Do you want to tell them what you got?
Thank you, kids. You can go to your seats. Thank you. ኢትዮጵያ ሮጦ first አንደኛ ወጥቷልና ተስፋዬ በመሃላችን ስላለ ወደዚህ ብጠራውና ወንበር አላችሁ በግጥም ያሸነፋችሁትን ወደ መድረክ ብጠራችሁ ደስ ይለኛል። ተስፋዬ እንደ ሰላም በላቸውና ለነሱ
ማይገባኝ ታናሽ ፕላቴና በክብር የተከበራችሁ ውድ ኢትዮጵያውያንና ኢትዮጵያዊያት ሀገራችን በፍቅር በሰላም በአንድነት እንደ ቀደምት አባቶቻችንና እናቶቻችን በአንድነት ራሄል ትቀበያለሽ። እንግዲህ
ግጥሟን በደንብ አዳምጣችኋል። አንደኛ ወታልናለች የሷ እና መጨረሻ ላይ ደግሞ አራተኛ last but not least እሺ እንግዲህ እንደገና ሞቅ ያለ ጭብጨባ ለተስፋዬም ለአሸናፊዎቹም ጊዜያቸውን
ይስጣችሁ። በሰላም ለቀጣዩ ዓመት ያገናኘን ጀግኖቻችን በሰላም ለቀጣዩ ዓመት ያገናኘን ጀግኖቻችንን ነፍሳችን
For sure. I'm Gideon Bain. I graduated from semester.
What do it means to you?
Well, just the way my brain works, we were extremely strategic and intelligent about how we went about it, and that ultimately led to our victory. You know, and I think a lot of those principles can tribes. It wasn't about ethnic groups. It was about unity, and I think that they're people, and I'm very adamant about that. People, and I'm very adamant about that.
For the younger generation.
So, you know, I struggle as well. Like, I'm not perfect by any means, but it's just, once you get that, I'm not perfect by any means, but it's just, once you get that to where you want to be and you're blessed, it's a very important, when somebody asks you something, it's a very important, when somebody asks you something, you aid them. Hiring, I want to put people into a position. If you can share my contact information, I want to put people into a position. If you can share my contact information, we're hiring actively. So I'm trying to put my people on for.
Going in the boardroom, and he said at the end, I'm ready what? To hire. And I'm ready what? To hire. I can hear you, Adwa. I can hear you, Adwa. I can hear you, Adwa. Adwa. Adwa.
What for him? What for him? I would not have become the kind of philosopher that I think I am. He, by way of respecting human dignity, and every person who invites him. I have never known Cornell to be the type of elite. Cornell was presence in its monumental event, namely Adwa.
Let everybody in say that this is a great day of celebration. I am deeply well present. Of course, our friendship and brotherhood goes much. About my cufflink that was bought for me, that I was embraced with deep love and magnificent warmth by the on and on, a million and so many others. But I have never in my life encountered a culture from the chocolate side of Sacramento, California. And so we got a lot of loving black folk there and transformed by the love of Ethiopians. And so I just want to say that Menelik and the Empress and a whole coalition of Ethiopians pushing back Italian as a whole. Because we're living in the age of Europe. The whole world was being shaped by those nations between the Atlantic Ocean, shaped in the image of Europe, shaped in the interests of those European nations, and here come these dignified Italians in such a powerful and a magnificent way. And so I can't be there in person, but I'm there in spirit with my precious Ethiopian brothers and sisters.
Which is a characteristic feature of what it means to be Cornell West. For the past 2 years, to bring you to this event, production, it's just not new to turn people down. You live what you preach. You are a Christian philosopher with a particular respect across gender and across class. And of course, Adwa, as you will be, to preserve the sovereignty and dignity of what it means to be Ethiopian.
would surely agree with me. There is a particular dimension to Adwa, namely it. Absolutely. And I think two of the distinctive features of the struggles of too is to bring together character formation and soul craft, to choose to be certain kinds of human beings of integrity and honesty and decency, as well as courage and persistence and perseverance, but then to do it in such a way that you can create collectivities, create movements that are then brought to bear to try to transform the world in a positive way. Now, of course, Ethiopians are human beings like everybody else. You know, you're going to have Ethiopian gangsters and thugs, just like you got black gangsters and thugs. And when I was there in Ethiopia, of course, we were engaged in serious critiques of Mengistu at that time. And the ways in which and in the name of liberation, you ended up with too much republic. Well, that's a human thing. But at the same time, Ethiopians, for me, all the way back, hundreds and hundreds of years to a great Ethiopian civilization. And Cornell, as you know, I'm sure knowing you, you have keenly looked at the theme of this event. Most when you have a David versus Goliath situation, who would have expected that Europe expanding beyond? And lo and behold, I mean, it's true, there were Russian and French rifles that Menelik and others, European forms of military technology, but no one expected that any of the African nations would be able to resist any form of European colonization, going back to Berlin in the early 1880s in that famous conference where the Scramble for Africa, the reshaping of Africa, and really just the stealing of African land and the exploitation, subjugation of African peoples. Now, Ethiopia itself, of course, when you get geniuses like Bob Marley and others looking to Haile Selassie as what? A man of great dignity, a man of tremendous power and so forth. Now, I'm critical of any emperor. I'm a radical Democrat, so I do want to make sure that ordinary people's voices are being heard. But at the same time, even given any critique of Haile Selassie, and he deserves criticism like anybody else, no one can deny his dignity. No one can deny his grace in the face of Italian and colonialism, and for five attention, but it's something to build on. We need that same dignity, that same truth-telling, that same courage, that same form of organization. Proclamation with a military decision of Lincoln. They couldn't go through the legislation, through the Congress of the United States in the 20th century. So you can see that there's a sense in which the American people, the issue, I'm just here to simply, so many years there, of course, at the Berkeley School of Music, so many years. No, it's true. That is called American ignorance. And freedom fighters, Menelik on the one hand, the Empress as well, and then, of course, in the 30s, and the struggle against black people during Depression in the United States. And I end this interview against solidarity and the recognition of the violation of Ethiopian dignity. It's music. Yeah. I love you. I respect.
Announcement. So please say your name and then.
My name is Lena, and I'm a first year at Harvard.
I think you guys heard enough.
April 15? 19. April 19. They go almost fake wedding, celebrating our culture. They have doing amazing things, but sometimes they feel like they're all alone. They don't have the time to be able to support and be able to see them at their school. I wanted to grab them before they leave so that I can introduce them to all of you. Drama is playing. You can up. The room is dark. I want everyone to be quiet, okay?
የተሰበሰቡት ወላጅ አልባ
እንዲከፉብኝ አልፈልግም ሳቂ
ምንድነው ግርግሩ
የኢትዮጵያ ቲንግንቺኒ ቴንግናሬ እና ያቀረበው ሐሳብ የራሱ መጥቶ እንዲያስረዳ ያስፈልጋል non posso crederci
ረዱን እንደማማከረ ፈልጋለሁ
ያምን ፈዳችን ግርማና ማህተንህን ከሰር እኔ የምልህ ኮንታንቶሎኒ ትናንትና ምን የተባ ታዲያ ለምን ተሰርዟል ይላሉ
ታስበው አይነካ አይደፈር ማለት
እንዴት ዋከ እንዴት ብትደፍረን ነው እንደዛ ይመስል
እኔ መሰለኝ አይነካ ማለት ይቅር ማለት ነው መሰለህ
እንኳ ያጣመመው ብስ ስለሆነ ንጉስ እምበርቶ በፍጹም ለያሽ ደገና ያስቸግርክ
ጌታዬ የዳንቶ ለሚኔ በቃለሁ እንዲናትና ጣይቱ ልጡ
ደግብለሻል አደማ
ኮንታንቶሎኒ በንጉስ ማስተካከያ ተሳካለ
ሐሳብ ባመጣ ምን ይጠቅማል እቴጌ እቴጌ ዛሬ ሐሳብ አመጣለሁ የኢትዮጵያ ጠላቶቿ ባህሏ እንዳይጠፋባት የታላቋ ኢጣሊያ ጠባቂነት ያስፈልጋታል በጣም ጥሩ
ኢጣሊያ የጣሊያ
በታላቋ ዩሮፓ
አንድ እንኳን ሀገር እንዳይመስል በስለት ዮሬ ኮስማና የነት መጣለው ያለንበት ቦታ ባለህበት ቦታ ልንቀይ ለጠጠር ሰጥቶ ለሀገሩ ክብር እሱ ሞቶ ሀገሩን የማያስከብር እዚህ አንድም ያለ እንዳለ በመሬቴ በማምላክ ስም ቃል ገባ ባሻዬ ዘን ደፋር እስኪ ድረስ መጥቶ እንደዚህ ደፋር እንደፋር
ብዬ በኢትዮጵያ በእናት ሀገሬ ከመጡብኝ ወደ ኋላ ይማልን እንደቃለን አሁን ወራዴ ታላቋ ኢትዮጵያን ሀገራችንን ወራዴ ታላቋ ኢትዮጵያን ሀገራችንን ክብሯንና ዳር ድንበሯ
የሀገሬ ሕዝብ ለሀገሬ እንደምትቆም አውቃለሁ ሀገሬ እንደምትቆም አውቃለሁ ይህም እንግዲህ ጠብቅ ወገኖቼን በሰላም መልስልኝ ጎርጊስ
እጅግ ከበድ ያለ አዋጅ አውጀዋልና ልብ ብለህ ስማኝ። አላጅ የለኝም ታጣው መድረሻ
የሰው ልክ አቅም ሰላቶና ውሻ ኢትዮጵያ ሀገሬ ሞኝነሽ ተላላ ኢትዮጵያ ተላላ ኢትዮጵያ መጡብን ነገር ከፈለጉን ወንድነታችን ነው ልጅ ነኝ ወንዶቹን
ወንድነታችን ነው ልጅ ነኝ ወንዶቹ ቁና የሚኒልክታችን ነው ልጅ ነኝ ወንዶቹ ቁና የሚኒልክ ልጅ ነኝ ስመገናና አገርን ልጅ ነኝ ስመገናና አገርን ጠብቄ ራውና እንኳን በኢትዮጵያ ዘራፍ ዘራፍ አካኪ ዘራፍ ዘራፍ አካኪ ዘራፍ
አይዞ ኧረ ገዳይ ኧረ ገዳይ ኧረ ገዳይ ኧረ ገዳይ ኧረ ገዳይ ኧረ ገዳይ በለው በለው
ሲለጅግናብነቱ
በለው በለው አራገሬ አራገሬ
ና አለኝ በየጎራ በየጎራ ዘራፍ አካኪ ዘራፍ ዘራፍ
ቅዱስ ጊዮርጊስ እንግዲህ በጀግንነት ተዋድቃችሁ ሀገራችሁን ዳር ድንበራችሁን አስከብራችሁ በሰላም እንዲመልሳችሁ
ተከተሉ ተከተሉ
አደራ
አላት መደጋዬን ምንላት
ስድስት ሰዓት ባልሞላ ውስጥ ተሸንፈዋል። 6 ሰዓት ባልሞላ ውስጥ ተሸንፈዋል። እልል በል ያገሬ ልጅ እልል በል ያገሬ ልጅ
መጠጋዬ ምንላት